CTV family. Catch us live on your TV
screen. Listen, you know CTV where we be from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Ekse. You know the vibes. Thank you so much once again for choosing us, as you always do, to be your source of entertainment. Remember, we are here all the way up to 5 o'clock. The hashtag to use for today is Talk Thursday, because we are having a very, very important discussion, and that is about drug addictions / abuse. Now, if you feel like you have a story that you want to tell us, please do hop on our socials, but you don't have to put it on our actual page. You can actually just DM us, and everything that you write in that DM will be strictly confidential. We will not release your name, nothing. Everything that you say will be anonymous. We just want to share and open up a safe space where people feel comfortable and safe opening up about situations, about drug abuse, or all these things that are very, very important that are happening in our communities, but I feel like we're not talking much about them.
Yeah, and I mean, we've just heard 2 inspirational stories, and they had community around them, so we want to be that community, those people that you can trust and just tell.
Yeah, and joining us in the studio today is someone who is not new to Talk Thursday. She is our resident lawyer, and she's going to be speaking to us today about the implications of drug abuse. So let's say, angithi ukuthi marijuana / weed ibizwa with ngamanye amagama, all of that, it is legal, so you can smoke weed if you'd like to. But we're going to be discussing, actually, if you are caught with too much weed, what can happen to you if you're caught with drugs like cocaine, heroin. As you know, if you go into clubs and all these different areas, you can, or most possibly will find drugs. What happens? What are the implications? Where do you go from there? Can you get yourself out of jail? How long will you be staying in jail? All of those nitty details, so that we scare you enough that you don't do drugs. Hopefully you are scared. I'm joking. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now let's talk. I mean, you are what do you specialize in when it comes to law?
I'm a general lawyer.
So what are some of the main concerns that you have about drug users, especially in South Africa, in terms of law?
Well, first of all, our law says that ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So just because you don't know that something is illegal cannot excuse you from actually being criminalized. So when it comes to drugs, the act is the Drugs and Drug Trafficking Act, whereby it basically talks about drug use and drug dealing. With drug use, you could be found in the wrong place if you use drugs or you are in possession of drugs. Also, it goes further to talk about dealing in drugs. So you find out that when we talk about dealing in drugs, it involves even just transportation, exportation, manufacture, just having drugs in your home. But then we have this whole marijuana being decriminalized. However, there are limits to that. So per household with 2 adults at least, you're only allowed to have at least 1.2 kilograms of marijuana. And if it's only 1 adult in that whole household, you can only have 600 grams of marijuana. Yes. But then again, like I said, you should actually understand that whatever you do when it comes to drugs, be it you just having suspicion that someone in the studio is using drugs, you should report that. So it is every other citizen's duty to actually report and make sure that there is not any dealings of drugs in their surroundings.
Okay, wait, if we're saying drugs, are we counting in weed? So if someone is in the studio, having a little puff, pass, are we saying, I'm going to tell on you? Or am I passing it because it's marijuana?
Well, there are schedules when it comes to drugs.
Okay.
There are certain drugs where we have drugs that are called dependence-producing drugs. Then we also have a dangerous dependence-producing drugs. Depending on which ones you are using, there are certain laws that regulate that.
Okay,
For instance, on our dependence-producing drugs, we could be talking about aspirin, painkillers. Those also fall under drugs. However, just because these are not dangerous, you are not allowed to just give people those. You only need to give them if you're licensed, if you're a doctor, if you're a pharmacist, and the likes. But as an ordinary person, you're not supposed to do that. So that's also part of dealing in drugs, and you're not supposed to be in possession of them if you do not have the rights to have them. Then it also goes to dealing with them when it comes to dangerous producing drugs. But then now there are components and elements of this drug falls under this particular schedule because there is this and that in these drugs. So then for those ones, they'll be falling under the dangerous producing substances, which is under the Schedule 2 of Chapter 2, I think, of drugs.
Wow.
Yeah, and I mean, you were telling us that there should be 2 adults in the household, when you're using marijuana. So what happens in the case whereby there is, they're not following the protocol or the rules? What happens then?
Well, then now it constitutes a crime. Any
Okay.
steps can be taken from then.
And then let's say I am, like you said, actually, I love that point that you mentioned, your ignorance does not excuse it from being a crime. Let's say I don't know and I'm in the club. First and foremost, how legal are drugs? Let's say I'm not selling drugs, but I have cocaine and I'm smoking it in the club, or I'm sniffing it in the club. Is that illegal?
Remember,
if I have heroin and I'm shooting it to myself, not to anyone else, is that still illegal? Can we walk those bounds a little bit?
Yes, since I say there is the part which just deals with use and being in possession of.
Okay.
And there's also a part which just deals with dealing in drugs.
Okay.
So you could also be criminalized for using them or being in possession of them. We cannot come to your house and find cocaine and you say you were not using it, but it's in your house. So somehow you are dealing in drugs or you're actually in possession of drugs.
Yeah. So drugs so the only drug that we know right now that is allowed is marijuana, and obviously the ones that are prescribed by the doctor, be it painkillers and all of that. So if any other drug was found on me right now, I would be arrested, be it cocaine, heroin, all of those things, are you saying to me, are not allowed as we speak right now in South Africa?
Yes, and we could all just be in trouble for that.
Oh,
Sure.
that's hectic.
Do you perhaps know what led to marijuana being decriminalized?
Yes, because now some people use it for religious reasons, and in our country we say that everyone is free to practice their religion.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
cannot say you are allowed to use your Bible, but a Rastafarian cannot use marijuana, which is their form of showing their praises to their belief.
And what are some of the main concerns that you have when it comes to just things like drugs being decriminalized and all of these things, where it's like more and more drugs are becoming so accessible. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but like if you want drugs, you can literally get them within the next 10 minutes. It's not difficult to find them. So what are some of the concerns when you're looking at it from a law perspective?
For me, it's the fact that they are saying for personal use you can have this amount of
So and so. Yeah.
But then there is nothing that regulates where you are getting the drug. So somehow, they actually are aware that someone is dealing in drugs so that I can get them. But nothing is being said about that.
Yeah.
So it's like we are allowing something, but kind of covering up where it's actually coming from.
Yeah, and then also the people that are making it could be making more than enough. Then they just distributing to so many different people. Now, what are some of the things that we can do as, let's say, as TK, as myself? I mean, we're not experts, but we're trying to maybe raise awareness on what it means to have drugs and how important it is not to have drugs, because there's so many illegal complications that come with it. So what can we do to make sure that we stay in the safe side of the road and not, end up in prison?
Well, I mean, with everything that you're being introduced to for the first time, you need to question yourself if this thing won't not land you in trouble. And I would always advise that, especially with young kids at home, always teach them these things as they grow up, because most of the times we think we would teach our kids when they are 18, yet they're being introduced to so many things when they're actually kids.
Yeah.
So as families, as sisters, as siblings, we need to teach our young siblings the stuff of the world.
I love
at
that.
earlier
Actually, the
stages.
conversation for me, the normal pattern that's coming up within the first 3 panels that we had is the fact that education. The more you understand what you're getting yourself into, the better you can actually tackle it. And I just really love that.
I love that as well. So true. But I mean, with weed, you are a lawyer. Maybe you don't know much about weed, but they always say that if you smoke weed, if you're clever, you're more clever. If you tidy,
There's so
you're
many
more tidier, and so on, and so much. So things like that. So it's not just for religious reasons. I legit don't agree with it being decriminalized. But what's your take on that?
Well, the people were going with the case.
Yes.
We're going there for their own religious reasons. But we cannot really say drugs help you to be more awake, because we've seen people go into depression because of drug use. We've seen people lose their lives because of that. So for a moment, they can make you feel hyped up, but then it won't last forever. Somehow you end up in trouble with it.
And they overdo it at times.
Yeah,
So
always.
it's still not safe.
I love that's the ending line. Some way, somehow, you will end up in trouble. And that is literally just has been the conversation that is happening. If you start drugs, there's no way you're just gonna wake up and decide you can stop, unless you got some serious warriors on your side. But other than that, you need to make sure that you are in touch with different people who are going to be helping you to overcome this next part of your life. And One Step Outreach is going to be talking to us a little later on. That was the counselors that we had in the first round, and they're going to be talking to us about their outreach and how they plan actually to help and give you that extra helping hand to make sure that you come out of your drug addiction. But remember, I asked you guys to hop on our social media pages. If you have any story that you want to share with us, please, ladies and gentlemen, do so in our DMs. Our inbox is open to you. Everything that you say is strictly confidential. It will never even, your name will not appear, child. Nothing will happen. And also joining us a little later on are the two men that we're speaking with, Ushane and Udenzel. They're going to be talking to us about how their story turned from frowns to smiles. So I really just can't wait for that. Remember, the hashtag to use is Talk Thursday. Hop on our socials and let us know. Are you having a good Talk Thursday, girl?
Facebook, Ekse Live, Twitter,
Yes.
Instagram, Ekse_Live.
Yes.
So do the right thing, beautiful peeps.
The right thing. Right now, though, I'm going to send you to go wash your hands, go sanitize, go drink some water, and we will see you after this.
CTV family, catch us